You're in a room full of people. Everyone's talking over each other, laughing, jumping in. And you're just there, listening. You've got things to say. You can feel them forming. But by the time the words are ready, the moment's gone, and someone's already changed the subject. So you stay quiet, again, and people notice. You're so quiet. Why don't you talk more? Said like something's wrong with you. Like silence is a flaw you should have grown out of by now. But they've got it backwards. People who don't talk much aren't empty. They're the opposite. There's so much going on in there, so much being processed and weighed and felt, that talking can feel like trying to pour an ocean through a straw. This isn't shyness. It's not a personality defect. It's a specific way the brain is wired. And today, we're going to break down the 5 signs of a quiet mind, where it comes from, and how you can finally feel understood without having to become someone you're not. So where does this come from? Why are some people built to talk, and others built to hold it all in? It starts in the brain. Then life shapes the rest. Some brains are simply wired to process more before they respond. There's a network in there called the default mode network, first mapped by a neurologist at Washington University named Raichle. It's the part that runs when you're reflecting, replaying, imagining, connecting one thing to another. In quiet people, that network tends to be busy. Loud, even. While other people are reacting in real time, the quiet mind is running everything through a few extra layers first. Is this true? Is it kind? Is it worth saying out loud? By the time all of that finishes, the conversation has usually moved on. That's the wiring. But there's almost always a second part. A history. Think back. A lot of quiet people learned, young, that talking came with a cost. Maybe you spoke up and got talked over. Maybe you shared something real and it got laughed at or used against you later. Maybe you grew up in a house where the safest thing you could do was read the room and stay small. So your nervous system learned a simple lesson. Silence is safe. Words are risky. And for a while, it worked. It protected you. Your quiet was never a flaw. It was a skill you built to survive something. The problem is, that skill never switched off. The danger's gone now, but the habit stayed. So you keep holding back, even in rooms where it would finally be safe to speak. Sign 1. The 5-second delay. For most people, talking is reflex. A thought shows up and it's already out of their mouth. No gap. They think by talking. You don't work that way. There's a delay. A few seconds where the thought goes somewhere first, gets checked, gets shaped, before you'll let it out. Picture a group dinner. Someone asks, "So what do you all think?" Everyone jumps in instantly. You're still back on the actual question, turning it over, building something real. And just as you open your mouth, someone louder takes the floor. The topic shifts, and your answer quietly dies in your chest. You swallow it. Again. It's not that you're slow. It's that you run a stricter filter than most. Some quiet check is always going in the background, asking, is this true? Is this kind? Is this even worth saying out loud? And it just doesn't wave things through as fast. You're not behind the conversation. You're doing more work before you speak than the person who blurted out the first thing that landed on their tongue. And in a world that rewards whoever talks first and loudest, thorough just looks like absent. People read your pause as having nothing to say, when really you had the most to say. You just needed a second the room never gave you. And over time, you stop reaching for that second at all. So where do all those unspoken thoughts actually go? They don't disappear. They go somewhere. Sign 2. The conversation that never leaves your head. For most people, Thoughts and words are basically the same thing. What they think, they say. There's no translation step. For you, there's a whole conversation happening that nobody else ever hears. You draft the sentence. You edit it. You imagine how they'll take it, then rewrite it to be clearer, kinder, smarter. And by the time it's finally good enough to say out loud, the moment's passed, or you've quietly decided it wasn't worth it anyway. Think of a meeting. Someone throws out an idea. You instantly see a better version. You can feel it, fully formed. But you want to phrase it just right, so you polish it in your head. 3 exchanges later, somebody else says half of what you were already thinking and gets the credit. And you just sit there going, "That was mine. I had that." Or it's a text. You type the whole thing out, read it back, delete it. Type it again. Change one word. Delete it again. On the other end, all they see is the little dots appear and disappear. Appear and disappear. And they have no idea you just wrote 3 paragraphs and sent none of them. That endless inner draft has a name. Inner speech, the silent voice you think in. Everyone has one. But in quiet people, it barely quiets down, almost a second full-time conversation running underneath the spoken one. You're not zoned out. You're somewhere louder than the room. And the cost is brutal in its own quiet way. Your best thoughts, your sharpest ideas, the things that would actually make people see you, most of them never make it out. You feel invisible, not because you have nothing to offer, but because so much of you stays unsaid, which is exactly why one kind of conversation drains you and another kind brings you all the way to life. Sign 3. Allergic to small talk. Watch a quiet person at a party, and you'll think they've shut down. One-word answers. Polite smile. Checking the time. People assume they're bored, or stuck up, or just no fun. You've probably got 3 phrases on autopilot for nights like this. Yeah, no, totally. Oh, that's so funny. And a little laugh that doesn't quite reach anywhere. You can run that loop for an hour while the actual you sits somewhere far behind your own eyes, waiting to go home. Then watch that same person at 2 in the morning, alone with someone they trust, talking about something that actually matters. They don't go quiet. They light up. Suddenly, the quiet one has more to say than anyone in the room. So what changed? The depth changed. Small talk, for you, feels like static. How was your weekend? Crazy weather. How about that game? There's no thread to pull, nothing to sink into, and it drains you to keep it going with nothing underneath. But a real conversation, one honest question, and you're all in. A lot of this comes down to how your brain handles stimulation. Quiet, introverted brains tend to be more sensitive to dopamine, the chemical tied to reward and stimulation. So a loud, fast, surface-level room doesn't excite you. It floods you. You're not antisocial. You're getting a flood of noise and almost nothing underneath it that actually feeds you. And the cost is that the world runs on small talk. It's the doorway to almost every connection. If you can't force your way through that doorway, people wander off before they ever reach the part of you that's actually worth knowing. You get written off as boring, when the truth is you're starving for the exact conversation no one's offering. But staying quiet doesn't mean you've checked out. Usually, it means the opposite. Sign 4. Reading the room instead of filling it. Picture a family dinner. Everyone's talking over each other, plates clattering, 3 conversations at once, and you've barely said a word. But you're the one who catches your sister go still after a certain comment. You notice the tightness between 2 people that nobody named out loud. You feel the mood drop a full minute before anyone admits something's off. And later that night, You're the one who quietly texts her to check in. That's the thing about quiet people. You don't fill a room. You read it. Who's tense? Who went still? Who laughed a beat too late? Who keeps glancing at the door? While everyone else is performing, you're running a whole second channel of information most of them don't even know is on. This is theory of mind running on overdrive, a term the Cambridge psychologist Simon Baron-Cohen used for the brain's ability to track what other people are feeling and thinking. Add in mirror neurons, first discovered by Giacomo Rizzolatti's team in Parma, Italy. The cells that make you feel a flicker of what you see in someone else, and you don't just notice the room. You absorb it. You take it home with you, and it costs you more than people realize. You carry everyone's unspoken weather home with you. The tension, the hurt, the things left hanging in the air. You feel all of it, and nobody knows you're holding any of it, because you never said a word. But the deepest reason you stay quiet isn't on this list yet. It started a long time ago. Sign 5. Silence as protection. This is the one underneath all the others. Because for a lot of quiet people, silence didn't start as a preference. It started as a shield. Somewhere early, you learned that words could be dangerous. Maybe you said how you really felt and got punished for it. Maybe you shared something and watched it get used against you later. Maybe you just grew up around someone whose mood you had to manage. Maybe you learned to read the sound of a key in the door, or footsteps coming up the stairs, and tell from the rhythm alone which version of them was about to walk in, the calm one or the other one. So you'd go still before they even reached the room. You figured out that the less you said, the safer you stayed. So you got quiet, and it worked. This one lives deep in the brain. Your amygdala, the part that runs threat detection, learned to tag speaking up as risky. So now, years later, the second you're about to say something real, you feel that flicker of alarm. Your throat tightens. A small voice goes, "Better not." There's a name for the habit this turns into. A Stanford psychologist named James Gross spent years studying it. He calls it expressive suppression, the reflex of holding your feelings in instead of letting them show. And his research found something worth sitting with. People who do this constantly don't just look more distant from the outside. They actually feel less close to the people around them, and they carry higher rates of anxiety and low mood. The silence that was built to protect you slowly starts charging you rent. And that's the loneliest cost on this whole list. The very thing that kept you safe is now keeping you unseen. People read your silence as distance, as coldness, as you not caring, when underneath you might care more than any of them. You're not far away. You're just guarding a door you've stood in front of so long you forgot it can open. So if all of this sounds like you, the question isn't how to suddenly become loud. It's something gentler than that. None of this is about forcing yourself to talk more. It's about stopping silence from just happening to you and starting to choose it instead. There's a world of difference between hiding and being selective. So let me leave you with 3 things. First, not every silence needs filling. Think about the last time someone told you something heavy. Really heavy. And you didn't jump in with advice or a silver lining. You just stayed there with them. Quiet. Present. That silence wasn't you having nothing to say. It might have been the kindest thing you did all year. The people who don't rush to speak are often the ones everyone secretly trusts the most. So stop apologizing for the pause. The pause is part of how you think, and sometimes the pause is the gift. Second, speak for connection, not performance. The next time you catch yourself rewriting a text for the 5th time, hunting for the perfect wording, Stop. Delete the polished version. Send the messy, honest one instead, the single true line sitting underneath all those edits. Real connection was never about the perfect sentence. It was about letting one real thing out before you talk yourself out of it. The people worth your time don't want the rehearsed you. They want the actual one. Third, the right people will lean in to hear you. You probably already know who they are. The person you can sit in a parked car with, engine off, neither of you saying anything, and it doesn't feel awkward, it feels like rest. The friend who notices you've gone quiet and asks if you're okay, then actually waits for the real answer. You don't owe everyone your words. You were never meant to thrive in every loud room. But those people, the ones who lean in, give them more of you. That's where your quiet finally gets to be safe, because the version of you that finally feels safe to speak doesn't talk more. It just stops bracing for impact every time it opens its mouth. So if you saw yourself in these 5 signs, the delay, the conversations that never leave your head, the small talk that drains you, the room you read instead of fill, the silence you've used as a shield, then sit with this for a second. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken, or cold, or behind. You just live with the volume turned all the way up on the inside. For so long, people have treated your silence like a wall. Something to get past, to knock down, to fix. But it was never a wall. It's a deep lake, still on the surface, and full of life underneath. The wrong people stand at the edge and complain the water's too quiet. The right ones sit down beside it and wait, and watch what rises. You don't need to drain the lake to be loved. You just need someone willing to sit by it. So let me ask you, which of the 5 signs felt the most like you? Tell me in the comments. I read them. And if this put words to something you've carried quietly for years, share it with the quiet person in your life who needs to hear it too. They're usually the one who'd never say so. You're not alone in there. I see you. I'm Soren, and I'll see you in the next one.